Hello, welcome to Calls with Your Kinky Bestie. I'm Emma. I am a submissive and mentor for fellow Kinksters. This podcast is all about insights into kinky life and dating, sharing my personal experience and stories, and help share mindset shifts too to get you into a confident space, more confident than you are now. So get ready, it all starts now. Hello. The topic today is boundaries around planning, being canceled on, plans being rescheduled, last minute changes, all of that super fun stuff that tends to come up a lot as you're dating and introducing new people into your calendar and all that kind of stuff. This is obviously something that as I was dating, I went through a lot because it's a pretty common part of the experience. Or at least from my experience and what I've noticed with my friends. I had a friend recently go through this where like she had literally made plans twice with someone way in advance, and they ended up like canceling within like the last hour or like a few hours beforehand kind of thing, over other plans and stuff. So it's very real. We all go through this, and it is obviously not comfortable to have plans change on you at the last minute by somebody else. Whether it's they've forgotten about your plans, or maybe they forgot about other plans they had already made, or maybe they have issues with time management, just whatever it is. Once you've made a commitment to spending time with somebody and you're showing up for that commitment and they're not, it is going to be upsetting, as it should be. It's pretty, it's pretty disrespectful. Okay, so let's say you're in this situation. I'm assuming you are if you've made it to this episode, or maybe it's just happened recently enough for you that's fresh in your mind and you want to make a game plan for how to prevent this from being an issue going forward. Yay, go you. And go you anyways. Also, if this just happened to you and you're feeling these feelings, it really is uncomfortable. So I commend you a lot for facing it and addressing it. So, okay, this rescheduling or cancellation has just happened, or you're maybe reflecting on a recent one that's happened to you. Okay, let's take some time, analyze what about it was so like upsetting or triggering. What was the pattern around it? What was the reason they gave? How much notice was given? What were the like actual commitments you had made around the plan together? Like, had you maybe already told this person that you need X amount of hours notice for plan cancellations to feel okay about it? Or maybe the cancellation did not have a ton of communication. Maybe you were even like no-showed on a date. Like, what actually happened? You can even get a pen and paper. You can just write it out or think like, what were the events that occurred? Like, how were these plans set? What happened leading up to these plans, the communication, and then like, what was like the end result kind of thing. And once you've got that all laid out there, then you're able to like really clearly identify, like based on the actual behaviors that happened, not just like your thoughts behind the scenes, but based on like on Friday night, he texted me to make plans. On, Saturday morning, we confirmed a time together. And then Sunday night, when the date rolled around, they canceled on me an hour beforehand or whatever. Like actually laying out what all of those steps are. And then you're able to identify, okay, what were the pieces that I can take personal accountability for that were not put into place? And what were the pieces that like this other person missed out on that like we had already communicated and set? So obviously if plans are being canceled on you at the last minute, it is not the most fun idea in the world to accept that like, okay, I have to take a personal accountability piece on this. But what's so freaking beautiful about that is once you're able to like recognize that, okay, everything in my life that's happened to me, I do have a part in it some way, somehow. But because I have a part in it, that means I can also prevent these things from happening going forward, or, change the course of how things happen for me. And it's a really beautiful thing. So what were the pieces in this planning and canceling or rescheduling of the plan that were kind of like on you? Was there actual and versus like what's on them too? Like, had they not confirmed plans until about like 12 hours beforehand anyways? So it's already last minute and more likely to, have other things come up in that last minute planning cycle as well. Had you guys already like had you communicated like what you need around planning? Had you communicated with enough notice that you would be available and confirmed for this time too? Same thing for them. Like what actually happened? And then it's also a great chance then for you to also recognize what are the pieces around planning that are important to me, and am I actually communicating those things? So if plans are canceled on you or rescheduled, like with a day or more notice, but in that you notice that doesn't bother you when you analyze that event, then that's great information for you. That like you having plans rescheduled with like enough notice, like feels okay, it feels fine. If it's that plans being canceled at any time ever is always going to be really upsetting, then like maybe that's a personal accountability piece where like it is probably going to be reasonable that a few times in your life someone's going to have to reschedule plans, having given you enough notice to do so. If that's the case, then maybe that's a personal shift that needs to happen where you need to be okay with like normal life things happening and letting go a little bit and, allowing grace for other people and all that kind of stuff, but just literally writing out. And if you notice that, plan getting canceled within like the, day of the event, like within like 12 hours, really is going to feel uncomfortable, basically every time it's happened, then that is great information for you too, that does not work for you. That is really uncomfortable. And then you can kind of, check that discomfort against like general social standards, just as like a way to gauge, like, is this something this person is going to like understand off the bat, or something that's kind of like unique to me. So for me to have that need met, I need to communicate that this is my need that is a little different than other people living in this universe and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So once you've kind of mapped out what's happened, why it upset you, who had a hand in what, and you have to, I'm so sorry, you have to at least create one personal accountability thing. Like what's one thing you can take ownership over with the situation, even if it feels like you set things up perfectly. Like you communicated that you need 24 hours of notice to have plans changed, or that you also perfectly confirmed that you were available for the plans in time and all that kind of stuff. Like what is just like one piece, if you had to give yourself a little ding, like where would it be? And this is not to be hard on yourself, but this is just to like, really see the whole picture and try to see the, perspective from someone else's shoes too. And all that kind of stuff. Okay. So then once you have that all laid out, now's your amazing opportunity to recognize what my boundaries are, where the discomfort lies, whether or not the discomfort is like reasonable for me to be putting on other people, all that kind of good stuff. And then how can you prevent that from happening by creating boundaries around like your life and how you run your dating planning and all that stuff. So if you know that you're someone who, if plans are canceled within 24 hours of the event, it's going to be really upsetting, then maybe your boundary is that you are only creating plans that are at least 48 hours out, so that that person does have a period of time that they can cancel before that window of like really discomfort where you're going to start feeling disrespected and stuff. Or like maybe another piece is that you are actually communicating to that person too, like, hey, so glad that, we're going to make plans for tomorrow at lunch or whatever. I'm available for this time, whatever. If we have to cancel plans, will you just let me know before this time? And that's your boundary too. This can be a boundary that you set like per appointment that you're creating. It can be something that you just like literally lay out for the person. Like, I need about a day's notice for plans to be canceled or rescheduled and stuff. That's up to you and how you want to set it. But then once you have this plan in place, you've got to communicate it at some point, even if it's like an internal rule. In order for you to hold someone else to that, you do need to tell them what it is, because clear is kind, as Brene Brown says. How is someone supposed to, know what you need. If you don't tell them, you can only ever get what you ask for. And then when you are communicating it, do it in a really like positive, solution-oriented way. Like the way you would communicate it wouldn't be like, hey, so-and-so, if you cancel plans with me within like, an hour of the event, like it's just not going to work, whatever. Like maybe that's actually the truth. Maybe it is, but what's a way that you can communicate it in a more like solution oriented, like positive way, so you can actually lay the ground for work for like what you do want and not what you don't want. Like, I was saying before, like, oh, so wonderful. We've confirmed plans. If we need to reschedule, I just need to be before this time. Done, set, beautiful. All right, so we're going to take a quick pause. When we come back, we'll talk about, how to actually enforce those boundaries, which is like the trickiest part and the part that kind of comes up again and again. And I think where, a lot of this discomfort is probably lying, if anything, from this first half has already felt familiar to you. All right, chat then. Just a little break to share that if you are loving this podcast and my content, if I'm someone you could see yourself working with, but you're wanting more direct support for your specific situation, I do offer mentorship. It's personalized to you, private video or phone calls with me, so you can chat about your situation and figure out a solution that's going to work for you. You can visit my website. It is kinkybestie.com/mentorships to see what's available and to book in your spot on my calendar. It's Kinky with a Y at the end and Bestie with an IE at the end. The link will be in the show notes, so you can check it out there. Back to the show. Okay, welcome back. We talked about finding discomfort around plans getting canceled before, how to find and set your boundaries and communicate them. And now we're going to talk about how to actually enforce those boundaries. All right, so let's say that uncomfortable cancellation happened. It is a new day. You have created plans with someone else. You've set those beautiful boundaries. You've let them know. You've made plans 48 hours in advance with this person, and you've told them, hey, if we need to make any changes to those plans, just let me know by this time, please. And then actually they let you know after that window, within a few hours of the event, that they need to cancel, reschedule, XYZ, something came up. So that boundary that you set with that person has now been crossed. What do you actually do about it? Okay, so there's a few options. If this is a pattern and you have communicated this multiple times, it is absolutely okay to say, hey, I've already set this boundary with you a few times. I notice that this keeps happening. Unfortunately, like it just is not going to be, this is not what I need from dating. So this isn't going to be a great fit. Be well, goodbye. If this is the first time this boundary has been crossed since you've actually communicated it, now's your time to reset that boundary and really like dive back into, oh no, so sorry this other plan came up. I wish I could have gotten to see you. Though I thought we said that I need to know by this date and time if the plans need to change. And then that's their opportunity to then, explain to you why. And then you as a person get to kind of dissect like whether or not that reason works for you. And you're not going to do this in a criticizing them externally way, but it's just in an internal flexion way. Like, what is their actual reason? Is their actual reason because something actually last minute came up and they had to rush their pet to the vet or something? Or is the reason that, they actually would have found out in time that they had other plans made, but just, they missed something on the schedule. They, were not being super thoughtful when making that plan with you in the first place. Like, what is the actual reason? And is that reason something you can work with or not? Is it totally up to you and your comfort level? Personally, for me, basically no matter what the reason is, unless it's like an actual emergency could not have been foreseen, they couldn't get out of emergency situation, then sometimes I will just give it another shot without even really harping on why or what or whatever. Just like, oh no, okay, let's reset plans. Again, I just need to know by this date whether or not we are going to be, rescheduling or anything like that. But if the reason is something that, in your mind you're seeing as like, okay, that's totally preventable. This is just them being like a careless human. Now's your opportunity to go, well, this is a piece of information that this person I'm dating, even when I communicate a boundary of something that I need from them, they have shown to me that they are not reliable in meeting that boundary. And as submissives who are looking to date dominance, it is so important to be super critical of pieces like that. Because if someone's not able to, show up to a coffee date on time with you when you let them know that you needed, a certain amount of notice or whatever it is, then like, how are they gonna, be able to keep track of your boundaries and commit to them and stuff? Like, we have to be protective of ourselves and our bodies and our emotions, and come in from that lens of like what I actually need from a dom and whether or not this person can meet it based on what they're showing me. Because again, it's not your job on the dating scene to teach anyone like how to do anything. It's just your job to know what you need, tell them what you need, and observe whether or not this person can give that to you. And if they can't, maybe this is your piece of information that you need to know. That helps you make that decision of, you know what, this is just not going to be a great potential match for me. And moving on. And it is really tough, especially when it maybe feels like DOMs are harder to find, or if you had a great connection with this person or something like this. And of course, it's going to be, case by case, but that is just what I have noticed. If someone is not able to respect my plans that we've created and like the boundaries I've set around it, it's usually just not gonna be a match, especially as we're moving into a kinky relationship and all that good stuff. So again, whenever you address that with the person, I don't recommend being, directly critical towards them about it. I recommend like bringing it back to you and saying, oh, wow, this is just, when I'm making plans with someone, when I'm dating someone, this is what I need around planning. I told you that, and just for whatever reason, it didn't happen. So I don't think this is going to work for me. Goodbye, whatever. You don't have to say whatever, but make it you. But I would make it about you and not them. Because again, that's like another part of submission is we're not like I don't desire to be doming or teaching or instructing other people. Like I desire to just be with someone who's able to be that for me. And, most submissives are on that page. So it's really important to like take that lens into like your dating behaviors too. So if you, decide that it's not worth a second shot because they really had all the opportunities in the world to make this right, and, it's just kind of an lack of care that brought that result around, then you can absolutely do that. Because this is dating. Nobody owes anyone anything. You have the right to walk away at any time for any reason, and that can totally be your reason, especially if it's a triggering thing to have plans canceled on you. Especially maybe the way that they're doing it is really uncomfy too. You can also always do this around like lateness if that is a really big bother for you. Just again, make sure that I would just recommend that the limits you're setting around it are like reasonable. Like, maybe if a person is 1 minute late and that's a no-go for you, like, okay, maybe that's time to take a step back and reflect on like whether or not, maybe you have some internal conflict around perfectionism. And so you hold everyone else to that standard, and maybe that's not fair to them because this is a real world where, there is, traffic and things in this world that happen. But yeah, it's going to be different for everybody. But I always recommend to, look at it, you've got to absolutely look at their behaviors and analyze them, but you got to look at your behaviors and your beliefs that come into like these emotions that come up around that too. And really just bring all the pieces together. And then if you do reset plans with someone, I really only recommend like resetting a couple times. Though this is also going to be like a case by case basis, because if this is someone that like is new to dating you and maybe you've only ever scheduled 2 dates and both times they had an emergency come up, maybe that's a no-go. Obviously, if you're in a long-term relationship with someone, like, maybe you've been dating someone for like, a few months, maybe like a year or more, obviously like 2 dates canceled within that time period is totally different than like if those, it's 100% of the dates that you've scheduled with someone have been canceled versus like, 5%. So like take all that into account too. So it's really hard to create like, fast and hard rules around these types of things just because, perspective and it's different for everybody. But these are kind of like my guidelines, what's worked for me. Just another thing I'll say is that especially if you're feeling really, I guess, like let down around this or like questioning like, oh, why am I even dating if this is happening? This is so disappointing. And it just makes me feel like so fearful around, like dating in general when, even the people I'm making plans with are then not showing up. I highly recommend to work through this planning thing and look at it from a more critical lens of like, okay, this is just an issue of boundaries not being communicated and doing that going forward rather than making it super personal because this is life. People are going to cancel plans with you sometimes. It's just something that you've got to work through and it's not a reflection of, your heart and soul or theirs. It's just like finding out whether or not this person's going to be a fit for you and why. And it's different for everybody. So that is all I've got to say about this for now. Thank you so much for listening in on this one, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye. Thank you so much for joining me this episode. You can follow the podcast on the platform where you're listening to get updates with new episodes. You can follow me on social media at Kinky Bestie. I'm on Instagram. You can also check the show notes for any links or resources that I talked about in this episode or just more ways to connect with me. And please share this with your kinky friends who could benefit from this type of content. There is also an option for each podcast episode to engage with Q&As or polls. So I'd love to hear from you and create future episodes around what you want to chime in with. So please check those out in the show notes too. And I look forward to hearing from you. Bye.